Welcome back. This is another episode of System of Systems, the audio misinformation arm of the Safety Propaganda Counterintelligence Network. And these are your hosts, Mr. Adam Lair.
And Will Sampson.
And it's been a few weeks, I think, since we recorded due to my having to put together the Safety Propaganda Presents Botch Chatification Live, which was a rousing success and was exhausting. Abso-fucking-lutely. I literally treated the concert like it was a bodybuilding competition. So I went into like full prep for it. So I was like, there's no way I'm gonna look like anything less than huge and shredded if I have to get naked in front of fucking 200 people. So anyways, mission accomplished there. But I'm fucking beat up, dude. I am really beat up. So what better way to kick it, relax, get back into the swing of things than talk about, I mean, we've done a few episodes on this guy, but he's a towering figure in the lexicon. We're going to be talking about John Frusciante again, the great guitar player of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, as well as Jandek for the melancholics of the world. Jandek, who brings the funk. And we brought on a former guest, as well as an artist, musician, academic. Here he is, Mr. Conor Tomaka. Welcome back.
Hey guys. Thanks for having me back. I'm stoked to talk about this fella.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you and I, we kind of bonded over shared Frusciante love.
Yeah.
So when, just to clarify to the audience, we are going to specifically be focusing on his two first solo albums. Niandra Lades, Usually Just a T-shirt, and Smile from the Streets We Hold. So this is a heroin era, almost dead John. And we're going to just try and limit it to that. But anyways, Connor, when did you start to hear his solo music and realize that he was more than just the Chai Peps virtuoso?
I think in like late high school, I was like 17. And I was like getting more into like Nurse's Wound and stuff. And I had previously been so into like, John Frusciante stuff and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But like, yeah, I think 17, I heard Usually Just a T-shirt. And yeah, that like was very eye-opening for me. I think it was 17. Yeah. And then I like was like obsessed with him for like the rest of high school. Like painting him and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting fandom with Frusciante because obviously he's a hugely famous guy, but I would say the vast majority of Chili Peppers fans not only don't know about his solo work, but might be, especially the first two records, altogether alienated by it. And I don't even think that was deliberate. Like, I really think he does kind of just separate the music he does by himself from the work he does in the band. He almost has this kind of like working musician aspect to him. Like, when I'm in the band, I take it seriously. I do my job, etc. When I'm in my home recording, that's my time. That's when like real magic happens. And, you could even like, I was looking at some of the old reviews. I mean, usually just a t-shirt. Niandra Lades got like decent reviews, even though people were rather fucking like befuddled by it. But you could tell most of the people are really kind of limited to an alternative rock canon, and they're having difficulty understanding like, why doesn't this sound more like what I am used to sounding, what I am used to hearing or something.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that the one that like probably resonates, like the earliest record that he did is probably like Shadows Collide with People. It's probably like the first one that people like can touch with that are like fans or something of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but like yeah, those early ones feel like I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was such a break. I mean, I think he recorded them during the first one, like usually just a teacher during Blood Sugar Sex Magic, like as just like demo recording, right? Or something like that. Something.
Yeah, at least a lot of it was. I don't know if all of it was, but portions of it definitely.
Yeah, and it feels like
all on a
so
4-track
so
recorder.
yeah, and it sounds like a Porta studio or something. All those like weird little like pitch shifty, like synthy sounding things. Like it just like tape loop Porta studio pitch shifting and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sick. Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
What was that? No, I was just thinking there was like I'm trying to think like the moments like because he quit and when he came back, there's like it feels like there's remnants of his solo stuff like at their live performances, you know, like when you hear like him doing like solo versions of like the Bee Gees and shit.
Yeah.
You know, live. Like it feels like very like he was like, yeah, I'm doing that now. And I'm not even sure why he rejoined them again now. Maybe it's like I know he got divorced. Like I'm not sure if it was like a money thing. I don't know. I know that he has like he's close with Lee or whatever, but it seems like very separate from that time.
He did have a rough divorce like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And he had to pay the bitch a lot of fucking money from what I heard.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because they don't have kids, but that's what you get for living in your neck of the woods in fucking California. I was married to this woman for 4 days. Well, you know, you got to respect women, so you got to give her fucking half your assets now. So have fun with that.
Yeah, and maybe that's why he's back. I mean, I just assumed that's why he was back because it seems like he's so like separate from a lot of the Red Hot Chili Peppers like shenanigan stuff.
Yeah,
like a very
absolutely. I mean, I know like when this was happening for specifically like Blood Sugar Sex Magic era, him and Anthony despised one another. Like Anthony writes about it in Scar Tissue. You know, John thought Anthony was just like a complete clown human, and Anthony thought John was like an up his own ass snob who was no fun. And both guys were probably correct in their assessments of one another. I think now, what happens is you get older, and then like all that negative experience, you start to reflect on it as memories, and then you're like, you know, a lot of that time was hard, but ultimately we fucking traveled the world together. We're like closer than most families could ever be. You know, we love each other. We hate each other. Like, and I think Frusciante's, I know like, especially with Flea and like him and Flea never even stopped being friends when he left the band the first time. Flea was one of the ones along with like Gibby Haynes. Talk about like superstar LA friends. The people who told him that he had to put out this record were Flea, Gibby Haynes, Johnny Depp, and fucking River Phoenix. It's like, oh, and Perry Farrell. Like, oh yeah, my friends who were all like superstar millionaires think I should put this out. But yeah, I don't think it takes anything away from his artistry that he works with the Chai Peps, you know, because like on all those records, he does shit with his instrument that is just like it sounds like it's impossible. Like it sometimes sounds, it's that Hendrix thing where it sounds like there's like 2 or 3 guitars being played at the same time, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was obsessed with them for such a long time. I mean, and even like the live stuff when he first came back in the early 2000s, like Stadium Arcadium and stuff, like those live recordings of John and Flea playing are like some of the best guitar like moments ever recorded. Like
I was talking about that with Mike Connolly from formerly of Hair Police, Wolf Eyes, etc. He came out to Filthy Armenians event in LA where I showed a play that I wrote, and we were talking about, and he loves the Chili Peppers and Frusciante too, you know, LA guy. It's kind of like if you're from LA and you're into music, like Frusciante is such a god level figure. But he agreed with me that if Stadium Arcadium was cut in half, and if Anthony like learned how to edit, and if the guys learned how to like edit and didn't make that a double album, that is by far their most perfect album. Like fucking Torture Me. I know we're not supposed to talk about the Chai Peps right now, but like fucking Torture Me, that like kaleidoscopic production, crazy chorus, fucking horn section, and then Frusciante going full David Lee Roth, like insane track.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I haven't the new record I thought was all right. I know we're not supposed to do it, but
I liked both of them.
Thinking about like, yeah, oh my god. I mean, but the connection, like Smiles, we were talking about those old reviews, and yeah, I saw that one that you were talking about earlier, the
Zero from Pitchfork.
And that album, that like it was shocking. Then I saw that, I was like, how could you possibly, like, that is one of the worst takes of all time.
Like, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I was really like, I don't know what was up with me. I was high as a kite and feeling nostalgic or something. So I went up and looked up old accounts that I used to post from on various art and music message boards. And I found this one where this artist, Adam Cooley, who used to do this project called Scissor Shock, and he was in this like droney kind of duo called Robe, but he was big on forums, and this guy's like knowledge of music and fucked up film was just like, sometimes I used to think he was lying. Like he would just say he knew everything because he just like never ran out of things he knew about. And he unfortunately passed away of opiates like early 2010s. I didn't even realize that till I just looked it up. But cool music if listeners want to check that out. Scissor Shock, some of it's on Apple Music. Anyways, I found this old thread, John Frusciante solo music. And it's all the fucking avant-garde music snobs being like, fuck the Chili Peppers, they're so fucking gay. And it's me and this dude, Adam Cooley, who was like a Sun City Girls, like residence kind of dude, just being like, no, you guys are all fucking retards. This guy's like the living genius of like modern underground music, you fucking morons.
Yeah, I mean, there's like so much in his shit, like, I don't know, that like it just like primed me as like a teenager for so much shit. Like I was listening to the second record, Smiles from the Streets, and it was reminding me of that one Belgian guy, you know, that something Oosterlink, like Boudoin Oosterlink. There's like these weird like vocal, like like you can't understand what he's saying at all, but it's just like these weird like emotional like grunts and shit.
Yeah.
And it just like it reminded me of listening to that again, and just like I can't, yeah, oh man, listening to it again was awesome. I haven't listened to either of these records in like probably like 2 years.
Oh, really? Cool, yeah.
Coming back to them.
I have a Niandra on CD and vinyl, so I play it in the car a lot. But Smile from the Streets We Hold is been out of print for fucking ever. I think that's due to a multitude of reasons. Frusciante says he's unhappy with the album. I think it might be that, you know, like when I detoxed from heroin, I watched like the final time, the really fucking bad time. The thing I was watching like vacantly as my body went through the icy throes of hell was the 6th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And now anytime I catch a clip of like Spike the Vampire or Sarah Michelle Gellar, who I used to fucking absolutely love, I get like these weird, almost like recall chills, like withdrawal recall. I think that I think the music might have that effect on him. Also, having a song on there called the Nigger Song is probably also not very helpful to getting this thing reissued.
Not great.
Yeah. Wild move on his part for doing that.
Not great.
Yeah. I mean, he has the little edgelord streak, dude. Like he's best friends with fucking Vincent Gallo.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But also just being friends with like Gibby from the Butthole Surfers, like that on its own is like enough to be like, okay, you're probably at least a little bit of an edgelord as well. You know?
Yeah, yeah, no. John is on the level. I mean, the thing with Frusciante is I think he's utterly aware of his own gifts. And does have a bit of like a complex, always having been like the smartest, most talented guy in the biggest band in the world. And but yeah, let's just get into these records. And finally, Will, I wanted to ask you, when did you hear either of these records, especially Niandra, for the first time?
Niandra I probably heard for the first time probably around 2016, 2017. I got to it kind of late. I knew about it forever, but just I didn't listen to it till like around that time. And I liked it, but wasn't crazy about it. It's grown on me over time, especially being on the show. I've listened to it more because of you being into it. And I would say, yeah, it's a solid, very good record. And then Smile, I only listened to like today to prep for
because
this.
I sent it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, because you sent it to me, which it was good. I still like Niandra more out of the two, but we can get more into that as we go.
Yeah. I agree, but there's something so fucking weird about Smile that I can't help but love at the same time. Like, to make something so avant-garde and postmodern, but to have like River Phoenix do vocals on two of the tracks, that's like so certain moment, it's kind of genius.
And those tracks are so sick. The ones that he's on are sick.
Like the best on the record.
Killers. Yeah.
And I mean, and I'm sure that's another reason that it's difficult to listen to. Like, River's dead, they were living the same kind of lifestyle. I mean, these are ultimately very young guys who made a lot of money when they were not ready for it. And I think that's kind of like what I'll get right into it. I think that's kind of what Niandra is really expressing, is sort of the this is too much. Like, I didn't ask for this. Like John joins the Chai Peps when he's 18. He's a fucking, at this point, he's a good-looking, enthusiastic punk rock kid from LA. And the Chai Peps as a bar band probably seemed to him pretty cool and unique.
Well, I think that he was like at the Guitar Institute of Technology in LA, if I'm remembering his bio correctly. And like he had a choice between the Red Hot Chili Peppers and joining Zappa's band. Like, that was the roads to go down. But in Zappa's band, you had to be no drugs. So like, if you were in Zappa's band, you couldn't do drugs at all. And that's why he made that choice. Like, he was like, oh yeah, well, like, this is this party band in LA. Like, this is sick. Like, small clubs. Like, that's what I want to be doing right now.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, there's all these stories about him in LA at the time, just like, like walking around all crazy, like totally fucked up. And just like, that guy was not touring with Zappa, like, in his band. Like, Zappa was like a total, like, he was like on some like
he's a
Brown,
teetotal.
like deduct your, it's like, you didn't wear your hat today, that I'm deducting it from your pay. Like, he was like real hardcore about that. So that like early period, like, he just got thrust into this thing, and then it was like it no longer had that intimacy or something of like those small clubs and stuff. Like, it just like ballooned.
It blew up so fast. Like, like it's hard to even, like, he probably didn't even see the Chai Peps as like a long-term thing, just like a fun thing to do while he was a teenager. But next thing, and it's funny to look at that in retrospect, because that was honestly probably like the worst and the best decision he ever could have made. Worst is in like, he came cunt hairs close to death. Like, I don't think anyone has ever gotten closer to the abyss without actually dying. Like, he might have the record for like heroin survival, but also the best because he is rich as fuck now. So I guess it worked out in the end, I know he
Yeah.
lives kind of like expensive too. Like he lives at fucking, I don't know if he still does, but he was living at a Chateau Marmont for like 1,200 a night or something like that.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I bet his synth collection is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got like crazy good taste. I always just like look at what he's into and just start like listening to music based on the things that he's into. Like if you look at his top 50 albums, it's pretty flawless except for the Mars Volta, which is probably just him throwing a bone to his friends, you know? And plus he's played on a lot of those records, but I mean, to me, the Mars Volta is like some of the most bunk sounding shit I've ever heard. But yeah, so
I like his stuff with Omar. Was it Omar Gonzalez?
Omar Rodriguez.
I think the guitarist of the band did like these solo Rodriguez. Yeah, him and John did these shows in LA in the early 2000s, and I remember seeing recordings on YouTube of that I thought were sick. I like never got into Mars Volta. I could never like vibe with it, but those recordings with just him and Omar are like so cool.
I mean, they're both virtuosos. I liked At the Drive-In, but I think Mars Volta was just like them indulging the prog wanky like shit way too much. You know, sometimes you need like hardcore bros to be like, hey, knock that shit off. So yeah, like Niandra, okay, so he recorded this, the first half of it, the Niandra half of it, which is the more accessible half. At the exact same time, they were in the mansion with Rick Rubin recording Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is insane to think about. He goes downstairs during the day, writes one of the most iconic fucking chord progressions in history with Under the Bridge, and then goes upstairs and writes these like head fucky heroin Sid Barrett gorgeous songs, but really and I don't think Frusciante gets enough credit for two things, which is his gift as a vocalist and his gift as a writer. Because his lyrics are strange and gripping. And then, you know, like Pussy Glued to a House on Fire. I cannot.
Incredible.
It's like,
yeah, like it feels like he's like he's having like it's like a dream. It's like, where did this come from, man? Like it feels like so much like it's like a diary of this time where he's like just writing this like this such a personal document of this period of his life that it's so strange hearing it. And lyrics like that song is like the strangest shit to hear ever on this album. It's like, oh, this is something. Some other shit.
But also, aside from its strangeness, it's also such a compelling fucking image. Like, goddamn, like it's such a good lyrical image. Just partly because of, but also sort of in spite of how like fucking bizarre the phrase. But yeah, sorry, what were you gonna say, Adam?
No, I think you're absolutely 100% correct. You can't help but just like imagine some woman's pussy stuck on a house on fire. Like, I don't know, and you have no idea what it means, and yet you get the sense that maybe it has something to do with sexual anxiety or disconnect, a romantic disconnect. It's interesting to think about because he's also, you know, he's made like statements, especially during his drug days, that he had, you know, and this is not uncommon for a junkie of this level, that he had lost interest in sex. You know, it was like, I'm sure part of that was being in the Chili Peppers and just like it gets so, dude, I have to bat away fucking, I'm in a goddamn fucking joke rock band with Alex Beanstalk and I have to bat fucking bitches and trannies away from fucking up my life. Imagine what it's like being in the Chili Peppers. Like, sex becomes this really sort of like monotonous thing after a while, I'm sure. And all of this,
he has famously.
Oh, sorry,
I was just gonna say he has like an Arnold-esque quote. Not to directly link it with bodybuilding, but Frusciante has this incredible quote that's like Arnold in Pumping Iron, where he's talking about like he's not like what you're saying, like he's getting complete gratification just from playing the guitar. Like he doesn't even want to see other people. He's uninterested in that aspect of his life. He's getting it literally. He's getting that from playing the guitar. Like during this period, like during the early 90s, like there's like I'm forgetting it's like pre him like going completely out.
That's
But he's
nuts.
like he like no longer it's like I think it's like when around the time where you had a shaved head, it was like they're in Amsterdam doing Velvet Underground covers and shit. Like
Yeah,
that
I remember
period,
that video. Yeah.
yeah, like
He
that
looked
period.
junked the fuck out in that video, dude.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god.
Kiedis looked like sober compared to him, and Kiedis always was able to handle his drugs pretty well. But John really became like a junkie quicker than, because Kiedis is more the type who's like, all right, I'm on heroin, I'm gonna go do some push-ups. Frusciante is like, I'm gonna go do some heroin, smoke some crack, do some more heroin, and then listen to fucking Yes on my headphones and cry. So there's like different levels to this junkie shit, you know. And there's that hilarious video of Kiedis, you know, from like a '98 like red carpet, and Kurt Loder is like, I heard you've been using heroin again. Is that right, Anthony? He goes, yeah, that's true. I have been using that substance sometime in the last 6 months. And he goes, in the last 6 months, when was it? He goes, well, I guess technically it was this morning. But he looks like super handsome, you know, he looks healthy. Whereas Frusciante, and I wanted to emphasize this point, after a while, of course, most people do start to look bad when they're on drugs. The difference of that is like really wealthy people who have like a steady supply can usually keep up their image, tan, fucking exercise, clean eating. But the physical disintegration of Frusciante, I think, as far as celebrities go, it's the most intense I've ever seen. In that infamous video, I mean, this was a kid who was like a fresh-faced California dude, not but a year and a half prior, and he has no more skin on his fucking bones. He's talking nonsense. He's clearly given up on anything resembling normal life, and it's fucking haunting. And all of that is what the album sounds like.
Oh, that interview where he's doing that jaw thing and he's like totally gaunt, like as gaunt as you've seen a person in an interview. And he's just like I think he's like playing some songs, and he's just like talking sort of semi incoherently to this interviewer who's sort of off camera, and you're just like, that's exactly it. That's exactly what this album, especially the first one, sounds so much like it. The second one is like on that, but there's something that feels so like it feels more like about like a friendship or some. It seems like more of a relation. The other one seems so alone to me. Like,
alone, yeah.
Usually, just a t-shirt feels like the most isolated record.
Yeah, maybe it's something like Niandra. He had almost cultivated this whole drug ideology where he like, you know, he really told himself that this is okay to be like this. It's no one's business. This is how I prefer. He even said something about how, I think I wrote it down, but he said heroin makes me in touch with, he said heroin keeps me in touch with beauty and keeps all the ugliness out of the world. I mean, that's obviously drug addict nonsense. And I want to emphasize, having been like really had problems with opiates myself, I don't think anyone needs to do fucking heroin to make great art. However, this is an album of heroin addiction, and it wouldn't have been made without it. That's not to say that John can't make great art off drugs. He's proven that he can over and over and over. But I, for one, I'm, you know, the feeling I get from both these records, like the central feeling is just like disintegration. That's why it keeps reminding me of Jandek. It has this sort of like bluesy, folksy, Americana, melodious beauty to it, but everything sounds like fragmented, dulled, almost like it's fucking dying in real time. And and this is like, and Jandek's obviously not like a drug addict, but I think it is aesthetically sort of similar. But this is the sound of like melody itself, like obliviated, like it's free and blissful, but at the same time glimpsing to the other side of death. And you know, I for one am glad that we have these documents of one of the greats who went that far and then lived to tell us these stories.
Totally. I mean, like, you know, listening to these records yesterday, like, you know, I was on just listening to them on YouTube. The comment section, you know, on any video of anything, pretty bizarre. But on these, it's like just like, you know, people writing their whole connection to these records and just like despair and like, oh my God, I never, you know, I never listened to anything like this before, and it helped me through all these like horrible times. And it's like he like really like honed in on just like total like disintegration or like despair or just like some like very core fundamental emotion and just like distilled into this record, which is, and it's just, yeah, it's hard to not recognize that when listening to that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, one thing that kind of blows my mind is that he apparently like still had a girlfriend during this period, because the cover where he's in drag and he's doing the Duchamp reference, it was shot by his girlfriend at the time, who helped him come up with the concept, which is just like, man, oh man, if I had a girlfriend, I would not want her to like watch me just waste my fucking body like this. But again, I think what makes this so unique is it's like, it's an avant-garde record by a guy who's already reached the pinnacle of mainstream success. Like, we don't really have many examples of that, you know. There's I mean, Syd Barrett left Pink Floyd way before they were a platinum band, you know. Fucking Beefheart, you know, art heads knew who he was, but he certainly wasn't like successfully in the mainstream. But John Frusciante had just helped written a record that's ended up selling 13 million fucking copies. And here he is making something so strange. And like, but he has that perspective of like, we don't have any other really avant-garde documents written by someone who's like had to deal with that kind of success. So he is allowing us, because we all kind of fucking crave it, right? I'm not the, like, I obviously struggle with like need for attention and like Libra, Scorpio cusp shit. But there's a total flip side to it. Like, and like, who are these people following me? Like, this shit makes marriage and relationships really fucking hard. Imagine dealing with that on the level of global success. I think Frusciante probably was trying to kill himself to an extent, though I doubt he would admit it, or at least he was like comfortable with the idea that he would die, which is like a, you know, there's a powerful darkness to these albums. It's chilling to think about.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about like, you know, it's been a while, but watching that documentary on Blood Sugar Sex Magic, you know, like, and like the whole like Chili Peppers thing, like it's like they're like, you know, there's like brotherhood sort of vibe,
Yeah,
you know, like
the
so
funky
like
monk
intimately
style.
close, funky monks, yeah, and like there's like their friendship is like so tight, like obviously Anthony and Flea are like super super tight, but the whole collective, but like I think something that really hit me in this, listening to this record again, especially like subsequently after listening to this, I got really like, I've like got really into Coil in college and like my early 20s. And I love that dynamic of that band of just like these people are like so close. And I
Yeah,
remember watching a documentary about them talking about like, they were like allowed to like gestate in the dark like mushrooms, and they just like weren't overexposed to sort of celebrity or like fame for Coil, and they're able to just like make these records sort of in in private a little bit, like they feel like a little bit private of documents. And like this feels like he's like trying to just go back into the dark, like he's like trying to pull himself back underground and like cover himself with soil, like it
yeah,
feels so like seeing somebody try to do that, like through like drug induced means is like, I don't know. I'm like you said, I don't think it's ever been documented before. And
yeah,
like the only thing, in Coil, like that last Coil record, Ape of Naples, it's like so dark, and it just feels like it's his like, he's like talking about his own death and his life, and it's so sad. But then in this, it feels, yeah, there feels like some weird acceptance with his own like mortality, or like what path he's gone on. If he's not happy with it, it doesn't seem like he's very happy with where he's at all.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
No. And that was like a thing that's hard for me to access, because like I was really, even when I was using heavy, I was always afraid to die, and I was always deeply ashamed of my drug use, like deeply ashamed. Um, the idea that you can just become like, nope, this is what it is, and I'm gonna fucking annihilate myself with drugs. Like it, it it takes a kind of commitment almost that you could connect to like his virtuosity. Like he really fucking commits to the bit, and he's probably stubborn as all fuck. There's all like,
yeah.
did you ever see the video that Gibby and Johnny Depp made of his like apartment, almost as like a cry for helpers? Did you ever see that, Will?
I think at some point I saw at least clips of it. It's been a while though.
I've seen that interview where he's the one we were talking about earlier, but I don't think I've seen this. No.
Oh yeah, it's a fascinating little art piece, and it's hard to like figure out what Gibby and Johnny. Also, so weird that all these guys are such close friends, like Gibby Haynes and Johnny
Yeah.
Depp and John Frusciante. But whatever. Um, it's hard to like figure out what they're trying to do with this thing, because you could interpret it as they're just sort of like humiliating their friend. But I think the more charitable interpretation is that like they were trying to put a document of what was happening to this like really beloved musician. And I think that ended up being the reason that Flea reached back out, to get him in rehab and get him back in the band. Uh what's your like favorite tracks on these records, guys?
Hmm. I think for my two favorite tracks on Niandra are the 10 to Butterblood Voodoo. I like that one a lot. And I really like Running Away Into You. Also Curtains and Big Takeover. I don't know. There's so many on the first one that are so good, but yeah, those are some of my favorites, I think, on that one. And then like usually just a t-shirt, like I really like, I don't know. I just like that whole side. I don't really know. It's all untitled, right? So
Yeah, that's true. um I always say, well, I think like the cover of the Bad Brains Big Takeover is one of the coolest cover tracks like ever fucking made, to be honest. But I don't know if that's my favorite, but I have talked about this before. Like I'm a UFC fan, and I always like try to wonder what, because I think some of these guys could do better with their walkout music, make it a bit more epic than having like two Drake tracks or whatever. And I think like having that weird ass version of Big Takeover would be like sort of a cool disorienting walkout music for a professional fighter.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I guess for my favorite tracks, at least on like the Niandra t-shirt album, I'd go Probably My Smile is a Rifle and then Pussy Glued to a House on Fire. Just to name like two.
Yeah.
Keep that short. And then for Smile, if I'm being honest, and this has only been like my first listen, probably the fucking River Phoenix tracks. And then like I forget the title, but it might be the opening track or like the second track, but like it's the really epic sounding one. It's really impressive to me because it's just like his vocals in like a single guitar recording. And the reason it's like so cool to me is just because it's like so much of like what's going on musically is just like through like implied harmony through like the melodies he's playing, which are not even particularly like complicated in terms of like the fingerings or anything, but just like I don't know, there's just something very beautiful about what he's able to, how much like musical shit he's able to imply, which is like very few actual notes. It like almost reminds me of like certain early video game music and how like minimal it actually is. I don't know, that's just very impressive to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think for sure your pussy's glued to a building on fire, but I also really love Blood on My Neck from Success, because that's the one where he's directly yeah, I mean, he's downstairs one point recording Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and then upstairs writing the song and just like fucking loathing the situation he's in. And at that point he didn't even know how big the band was getting big, but he didn't know like how big it was. So we already can feel like the alienation there. But there's also like the track 21, Untitled Number 9. Yeah, the like 7-minute just like ambient washout, which is I think interesting because it sort of alludes to his interest in electronic music that would become a bigger part of his oeuvre later on. I mean, he released like a dark ambient album this year that no one heard or talked about, but it sounds like Philip.
I think you were telling me that.
Yeah,
I think you sent that to me. It sounds great, man.
It sounds really fucking good. I mean, he's such a whiz with recording. Like, he has a good ear for genre, and like he really ensures that when he fucks with something, he doesn't do it in injustice, you know? So like I truly trust him. Like if he was gonna make a death metal record, he wouldn't make it some like lame-o fucking Pitchfork blogosphere Anthony Fantano ass death metal album. He would be like, all right, let me get fucking Paul Ledney, let me get fucking all the best of the best and make like a real death metal record. Like he respects music, perhaps as much as anybody in the entire world. And one other thing, I just want to say this really quick, because I think it's one of the most commendable aspects of John Frusciante as an artist, is he reveres pop and the avant-garde in equal measures, understands them, understands their distinctions, but also understands what makes both great. And that is like the rarest quality, to be capable of doing this very strange thing and to do this like perfectly executed melody and to have respect for both. The power of both, I think, is amazing.
Yeah, I mean that quote that you mentioned earlier, like in Fire Dust recording, you mentioned that quote about what was it, the Ringo Starr for the string accompaniment for Niandra, like wanting somebody that understands why Ringo Starr is a great drummer, can play Stravinsky and like smokes pot, and he wanted those two qualities for Wenger. And like that's like totally sums it up. But then I was also thinking, listening to both of these records is like, you know, I love like early black metal stuff, you know, whatever, but like the fidelity, like his awareness of like using low fidelity recording as like a way for like intimacy in recordings. And I think in Smiles you get like a lot of that, where he's like, you hear the mic, like he's like far away from the mic, he's in different kind of rooms, like you're getting this weird room reverb and shit, and it just like that is something I think it's really like he hones in on so well. Whereas like Black Metal, obviously there's like a lot of beautiful melody going on there, but similarly,
atmosphere is utterly important.
It's so important, yeah. And it's like, and it feels like it's so much more intimate in this case than with like, you know, in some Burzum records it's there too, for sure, like that coldness and like this sort of like isolation, but like in that that second Frusciante record is just like it's undeniably there. It's like, ugh, makes me so
Yeah.
sad listening to it.
Yeah, I feel like the first record, he's probably listening to more stuff like Sid Barrett, Beefheart, Zappa. The second one, I think he's going down deeper down the rabbit hole into like Residents and stuff like that, because there's so much like off kilter, weird lefts and turns, you know, interesting strumming techniques. And it's weird though, because like you still hear these are obviously very, they're still kind of like Guitar Hero albums in a weird way. Like you still kind of, yeah, yeah. Like I don't think he can ever even
He busts
like
out the shredding for sure.
Yeah, he's just so virtuosic. Like I wish I had like that kind of command over anything. Like what a fucking gift, you know? It's like he sees the instrument. Like to him playing a guitar is like me fucking using a fork to put pasta in my goddamn mouth or whatever.
Totally, yeah. And he feels like, I don't know, like that. It feels like, yeah, like Hendrix or something in that way, where it feels like there's very little connection, like there's very little distance between him and the instrument. Like it's like a total vehicle for him
Yeah.
or something. Like it feels that way, like listening to like Zach Hill play drums or something, where I'm just like, whoa, like there is like literally no separation between that person and their instrument. Like there could not be more of an intimate link. And the only people that come to mind when I think of that is like Frusciante, Zach Hill, Jimi Hendrix, I guess. Like
Hendrix, yeah. Someone like Derek
out.
Bailey, maybe.
Derek
If
Bailey,
I'm gonna
yeah.
go like
Oh
deep
God.
head with it, you know.
Yeah.
Charles Hayward, I think, is another figure like that.
For
Charles
sure.
Hayward, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I have like all these like, I always wish that like Frusciante would I have all these, I get these ideas in my head about what would be like amazing live Frusciante collabs. I said to you I'd love to see him play with Jandek. I would also see him love to do some like weird free improv shit with like someone like Oren and Barchi, you know.
Totally.
Because those shows he did with Vinny Gallo were unfucking, I mean, all his solo shows were like mind-blowing, but the ones he did with Vinny Gallo, because they had the and PJ Harvey came out too, because I think fucking Vinny was fucking her at the time.
Yeah.
Oh
Whoa.
man,
I haven't seen those.
I'll send them to you.
That
They're
sounds
on
so sick.
a couple of them are online, and it was around that time that Vinny put out those cool records for Warp. But yeah, a lot of people don't even realize like how close they are. Like Frusciante, half the soundtrack for Brown Bunny is Frusciante tracks, and then the other half is Gallo tracks. And again, we have like, there's also some interesting parallels between their artistry, where they both have this sort of like sentimental saccharine pop quality that is also super alienated and disconnected and depressive.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure. And they're both like good looking guys who are like weird looking at the same time. So maybe there's like camaraderie there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I have to find those tracks. I mean, I remember listening to the Brown Bunny soundtrack and listening to even finding out about Vincent Gallo was because of John Frusciante. I was like, oh yeah, he did a movie. Cool. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'll watch that.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie's did like desperately due for like a big Blu-ray reissue, because like the only copy I have, it's not even streaming anywhere. So the only copy I have of it is some like fucking old ass like 2001 fucking DVD that I have to play on a region code free DVD player, which I recommend everyone get, by the way. They are the best.
Definitely. You gotta. That's one of the only things I've retained over the past 10 years of my life is a region free DVD player.
But you know, so many like man, it's funny because like I could see sometimes like where some of Frusciante's statements just sound if you're not like the converted already, like if you don't believe that he's as great as some people do, he does kind of sound like hella fucking pretentious sometimes. Like in an interview from Smile from the Streets We Hold, he's like, I felt like I was communing with the spirits, and the spirits gave me the ideas and they washed over me. And I'm like, that's some fucking junky ass nonsense. But at the same time, I know what he means. Like, his brain is so dulled, you know? So, like, you know, heroin, it's not a very surreal or psychedelic drug. It's not. It can put you in a really like dreamy, sort of lucid, dreamy state if you're on a very high dose, which I'm assuming he was most of the fucking time. So I think that's kind of what he means. He's in that sort of like for instance, I've had one, and I've told you this, Will, and I've written about it before. I had one encounter with what Arthur McCann called
Action?
Arthur Machen called Arthur Machen called the great god Pan, the unnameable, the occult, whatever. And I was 19 and I was at my parents' house, and my parents did this thing when I was a kid where instead of getting divorced, which they eventually did, they would just constantly like move to a new house and think like that was going to offer them some like new beginning. So I lived in like hella houses growing up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6 different houses. Yeah, I'm like a fucking unofficial military brat. Except like weirdly, the last 3 were all in the same town, all on Cape Cod. My parents were like, "Oh, I know what will work. Let's buy a house down the street and see if that saves our flailing fucking marriage." So this house that they had bought, beautiful place, built in early 1800s, on Main Street in Sandwich, Mass, which was actually like one of the first towns in Massachusetts in the United States. And creaky ass fucking house. And my room, it was sort of like like the roof sort of like tucked over it diagonally. So like I had posters that went on the wall like this direction. And I like banged my head all the time when I woke up. And I was there for the summer and I was on a heavy dose of OxyContin trying to sleep. Now, most people think opiates would have the effect of lulling you to sleep. On high doses, the opposite can be true. You can feel literally right in between without ever actually drifting fully into unconsciousness. And that's when it gets really weird. You see shit behind your eyeballs. Your daydreams just like spin out of control. It's not entirely unpleasant, but it's just like a strange experience. I get up to take a piss and I'm so fucking banged up that my prostate is like suppressed, and I'm having a bitch of a time just trying to get this piss out. I look up and down the hallway is this, I still see the image, and I am the last fucking person to believe in this shit. So I wrote it off at the time as a fucking hallucination. So I see the image of this old woman just staring at me, not necessarily threatening, just staring. I don't know. And I'm so sort of like strung out. I'm like, oh, well, I don't see it. I'm fine. I finish the pee and then I turn and she's right in front of me. Fucking screamed, dude. Walked right through her. And I'm just like trying to not look back. And the worst part is I looked back a third time and she was still there, had turned around staring at me. That is what I think John Frusciante is talking about when he thinks he was in touch with the spirits, because I think the dulling of the consciousness, of your material consciousness, does sort of leave you susceptible to, I don't know if we can even call them ghosts, but images, something. It leaves you open to something. And I think that's where these records are.
Okay. Fuck.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like in that waking state of sleep, right in between, that's where all these records are sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
I
like-
was listening to like some of those, the first like 4 tracks on Smile, like that. They're like, they feel so strange. So it's like when I was first listening to it last night, I'm like, maybe I'm just too tired. Like, and I had to listen to him again. I'm like, is he saying? I couldn't understand what he was saying, and it felt like kind of like he was like this weird like marbled or speech, you know, like very garbly. Am I saying
Marbled
marble, like
swarm.
marbled swarm or something? Yeah, yeah. But it just felt like some weird thing where I was being like led into something. It's very weird, and like he's using all those weird like pitch shifter effects too, so you're getting these like trails of like digital delay pitch shift of his vocals, and then he's still singing playing guitar underneath it. It's like
yeah.
so in between.
Yeah. I love the marbled swarm reference. I love how that's become like a reference for hard to decode fucking speech patterns.
Yeah, yeah.
I read that book the first time and I was like, I liked it. I was just like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Yeah, it makes me want to. If only I had that gift of gab. Unfortunately, not. What a beautiful gab.
It's a great book.
Oh my god!
I honestly think it's his best work. It's just I've read it 3 times now because you can read it in a sitting, and I still don't quite know what he was on about, and he won't talk about it. It's like those things when people ask David Lynch. But to be fair, I think David Lynch is a lot more like easy to understand in a lot of ways. Like there is kind of a direct interpretation of his work, whereas like Dennis Cooper's Marbled Swarm, I don't have the faintest clue what he was thinking about when he wrote that. So it's going to become this like epic puzzle in the future. Have you ever read that, Will?
No, I actually haven't read any Cooper yet. I wanted to for years, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, how recent is Marble Swarm? Is that like a new one, or has that been out for a while?
Fairly
it's
recent.
Kind of newer, newish. I think.
Yeah.
It's like
2012, maybe something like that.
He released. I think that sounds about right. He released that like semi autobiography recently.
Yeah,
with like Santa Claus and stuff in it. I'm forgetting what it's called.
Yeah, the one where the
cool.
final reflection on the George Miles cycle.
Yeah, yeah. The Marble Swarm is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, honestly, because like it's the hardest one. Everything else will be a cakewalk after that. I mean, if as long as you can handle. Oh my god! I just watched this adaptation of Frisk. I didn't even know it existed, but there's a movie of Frisk. It's absolutely terrible, but just like the most like budget ass fucking art school adaptation of the book, but it was still kind of interesting to watch because it's just like this gay serial killer with a shot on home video, just like picking up fucking like young boys, getting increasingly sadistic with them, and it's only like an hour long. I think I saw it on what there's like a website, it's like extremefilms.com or something where they stream these things. It has sort of I don't know, I feel like all this is kind of connected too, like John Frusciante's solo records, Dennis Cooper, Gary Indiana, Vincent Gallo, Todd Solondz. This is like all part of a very specific 90s avant-garde in America.
Well, this, I just saw he's touring it now. I think it was in New York, but Greg Araki is like touring his new, or that trilogy, like Doom Generation and Nowhere. And I just saw Nowhere in San Francisco. And Gibby Haynes is in that movie.
Yeah.
And like there's all these scenes of like these teens like, overdosing on heroin and all of that. So it does feel like this is all part of the same like cultural moment or something.
Yeah, it's like I don't think it can be replicated because the industry at the time, all these industries were so flush with fucking money, that like producers, they had their big hit guys. So they would take all these risks and give all these guys a shot. Plus, like, everything was different. I mean, Artforum magazine back then had Dennis Cooper as a staff writer, had Gary Indiana as a staff writer, Spin magazine, like all these things that we're old enough to have like engaged with, and I'm sure like was massively influential on everyone of our generation's sensibilities, but it seemed like it vanished over fucking night as soon as those towers came down, unfortunately. Well, no, it was two things. It was like it's a confluence of events: Columbine, 9/11, and then weird third, but I think like superhero genre films. Those are the three disasters of American pop culture.
Yeah, I buy that three horsemen theory. Definitely.
Yeah, we need a fourth.
Yeah, I mean,
COVID. COVID's the fourth horseman of the apocalypse.
Oh yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, it's over.
The American apocalypse. I should write that. I'm gonna write that down. All right, guys. I think we could leave it here. Do like a nice breezy one. If anyone has any final thoughts, throw it out there.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I love my preference in listening to them again. I listened to Niandra probably like, I don't even know, like 50, 60 times previously, but like I think like I didn't listen to Smiles as much back then, and listen to it now. I'm so in on it, and I think there's something really like, I don't know. I got to start listening to that record a lot again, because it feels like there's something that really like untapped for me in that thing. I feel like it's a marbled swarm. I gotta like really decipher what's going on in that record.
Yeah. I mean, and then I think we could also like factor in all the shows he did, playing some of these songs too as part of the era. Cause like I've watched so many of his concerts on YouTube and just like rue the fact that I never saw him. Some people just have this gift of performance, and you can just tell the whole crowd watching him. It's like in the official Kurt Cobain biography, the part where he does the unplugged concert, that whole thing was a debacle because Kurt Cobain's New York junk dealer was out of town. So they were scrambling because he was going into fucking detox. They had like MTV producers scouring the LES, like trying to figure out how people buy heroin, right? It was a big thing. Finally, the show's coming up. They still don't have any dope. And one of the girls working as a assistant had a Valium prescription because she had anxiety. And she's like, hey, Kurt, maybe you just want to take these and just bear through it. And he took like 3. So the unplugged performance that's why it is part of why it is the way it is. He's like sick, but mellowed into the sickness. So he gives this just like once in a lifetime fucking raw emotional performance. Apparently afterward, he's leaving with this girl that he was friends with, and he's like, did I suck? Tell me the truth. She's like, did you suck? Everyone in there thinks you're a fucking god. No, you did not suck. I get a very similar feeling to watching Frusciante play those solo performance shows where it's just that it's like that troubadour, that ancient troubadour quality where he's just sitting there on stage, people are watching, mesmerized, and he's like channeling an energy that's not available to the vast majority of us. And this goes beyond like skill or talent. It's just like a certain factor or magical quality that some people have, and he for sure has it.
Yeah, amen.
Oh yeah.
A fucking men. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Connor, thanks for coming out again. It's good talking to you. All right. I will I'll see you guys later. Hail Frusciante.
Nail Frusciante.
All right.
See you
Later.
guys.
Yeah, later.